Let me just take you back for a second. It's a late night. I'm trying to get my kids to brush their teeth, and instead, they're doubled over laughing at another FailArmy compilation. Skateboards flying, dads falling off trampolines, dogs stealing sandwiches. I mean, it's always about someone getting hurt, right? I've probably heard Chewbacca Mom laugh 100 times in my house, and yes, we were absolutely a Pizza Rat household when the clip hit the internet. At the time, I didn't think much of where this stuff comes from. It just showed up online and became part of our lives. What I didn't realize is that behind all of it was today's guest, Jon Skogmo. He's the founder of Jukin Media, the guy who basically turned user-generated content into a global licensing business before anyone else had figured out how to spell viral. But Jon's not here today to talk about viral goats or laughing babies. He's here because after building one of the most successful content networks on the internet, he's turned his focus to travel. And in doing so, he's taking a sledgehammer to everything we think we know about travel publishing. Jon is now the CEO of Lost In, a travel media company that's rewriting the guidebook, literally and figuratively. While legacy players are still printing glossy magazines with Eiffel Tower stock photos, Lost In is building loyal fan communities through curated city guides, video-first storytelling, and hyper-local narratives that highlight street rappers in Paris or the underground art scene in Tokyo. Not just 10 things to do before noon, like you usually see. As someone who spent over 20 years in online travel ticketing and event distribution, I've seen firsthand how hard it is for destinations and travel brands to stand out. The truth, most content doesn't convert. Most influencers are a little bit of a mess, and most travel marketing feels like it's been written by AI stuck in 2012. That's why this conversation matters. Jon and I get into the weeds on why building brand equity is more important than ever, how Lost In is creating analog experiences that live in the real world, and why legacy travel publishers simply can't compete in this attention economy without a serious reset. So, if you work in travel, live events, tourism, or any part of supply or demand chain, you're asking yourself, how do we actually inspire people to book? You need to hear this episode. So follow us on all the socials at Tix2TravelPod and visit us at www.tttpod.com for more. And make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast because Tickets to Travel starts now. Welcome to Tickets to Travel, the business of travel experiences. I'm your host, Mario Bedouin. And today on the pod, we have Jon Skogmo, the CEO and founder of Lost In Travel. Welcome to the pod, Jon.
Mario, thank you for having me.
I was thinking back to how I found Lost In Travel. And essentially, I was just promoting the podcast on Instagram. And I found some content that was very relevant to what we talk about in terms of event travel. And so I'm looking at the account, and I'm a little mad at myself, Jon, because I'm kind of a nerd for anything that's online travel. And I hadn't heard about it. I hadn't heard about Lost In Travel at all. And then as I start to go through it, I look at how many followers, all the very associated companies with it. And clearly, you guys know what you're doing if you have close to 1 million followers. And so as I dug a little bit further and got to understand what you were trying to build or are currently trying to build, I also found out that you're one of the guys who are literally responsible for getting people like myself and others out there to see things like Pizza Rat and Chewbacca Mom. Can you tell us just a little bit about that journey from obviously understanding viral media clips and then now how that's transferred to Lost In Travel?
My career, really, I come from a media content background. I started producing non-scripted reality shows in the mid-2000s, originally from Chicago, but moved out to LA. It was a really kind of the golden time of non-scripted TV shows. There was a lot of different formats out there during this time, but I fell in this genre of clip shows. And think of clip shows like America's Funniest Home Videos. But my job was go to the P.O. Box every day. One of my first jobs in Hollywood was go to the P.O. Box and pick up VHS tapes and DVDs that people would send it around America. And I thought this was very archaic, but I was really at a really great time in history where this was a very analog system and online video just started coming out and the technologies just started getting a little bit better. And so me being the right person at the right age after going out and working in the P.O. Box and picking up a handful of these tapes and realizing my job was actually to clear those videos and call up people and say, hey, we love your video. We'll put it on the show and we'll pay you X amount of money. But it took a long time to clear a single video because you had to call them, you had to send them paperwork, they had to send more footage. So it really was a hassle and a really archaic model. But like I said, I came in at the right time, online video, being at the right age, at the right time, the right personality, where I really took advantage of online video and went on this platform where I felt like I was posting content that I could actually go out and reach out to the video owner, reach out to them, they can send me the footage pretty quickly. And my producers at the time told me, kid, don't do that. Kid, don't do that. Go to the P.O. Box, shut up. But this platform, this website that no one ever heard before happened to be called YouTube. And so, again, I'm kind of like an early adopter to YouTube and online video. And I was able to quickly reach out to people and at scale, put their content on television. And nobody really was doing that before, at least at the scale I was doing at it. And
so you were actually supplying like American's Funniest Home or Ridiculousness or Tosh Point in that realm.
Certainly grew up to that, yeah. So I went around producing a handful of these TV shows for MTV, for CMT, and I was at Discovery when I realized online video is not going anywhere, and the proliferation of these really smartphones that came out, it was going to be easier to create content and consume content than ever before. And so I thought there was a lot of value in this content that I was licensing on a one-time basis, that someone needed to get the exclusive rights and buy that underlying property of user-generated content and viral videos. And so I quit my job when I was producing for Discovery and started buying videos from my West Hollywood apartment. And that was in 2009. You grew that business 12 years later to a 300-person company. We had offices in LA, New York, London, New Delhi, and a few other people scattered around the world. But essentially, we built a lot of technology to help us find quote-unquote viral videos. We built a marketplace, and think of Getty Images or Shutterstock, but we did this for viral videos, and we're licensing to every morning show, news show, talk show, publisher, news magazine around the world. And we really were the first ones to put value around user-generated content, thought there was something here. You scroll through your feed right now on Facebook or Instagram, it's all user-generated content. That wasn't always the case, and we understood that there was value in owning this underlying IP, and so we built some of the first content brands, one being called FailArmy or People Are Awesome, really big kind of content brands at the time. We were doing 4 billion-ish views a month. We had about 400 million fans. And so we really knew how to cultivate community and audience and do that in a digital sense. We got into CTV, produced a handful of TV shows. Anyway, ended up selling that business in 21 to Strategic. Stayed around for a little bit, took a little time off, although my wife told me I didn't. Me just being, again, I think the personality of wanting to build things, and Jukin was a huge successful business. That business was called Jukin Media. It was hugely successful in the eye of revenue and digital media.
What if you could simplify your trip, skip the lines, and save up to 50% off at the world's best attractions? With GoCity, you can. One pass, one app, and full access to top experiences in 25 plus cities, including Chicago, London, Paris, and New York. GoCity helps travelers win at sightseeing without the stress. Visit GoCity.com and use code TTTPOD25 for 10% off your next pass.
Attention sports fans, teams, and leagues, whether it's the season opener, playoffs, or the championship game, Bookseats.com makes getting there a breeze. With Bookseats, you can customize your ultimate sports travel package by bundling game tickets, flights, and hotels, all in one easy-to-use platform. No hassle, no stress. Just you, the team, and the game day excitement. For professional sports organizations, Bookseats.com offers B2B solutions to create exclusive fan travel packages, increase fan engagement, build loyalty, and make every away game feel like home field advantage with professionally curated travel experiences. From diehard fans to professional leagues, Bookseats.com is your go-to partner for game-changing travel. Visit Bookseats.com today and make your next sports trip unforgettable. Bookseats, your all-access pass to the ultimate sports travel experience.
No doubt. You said FailArmy, and I'm pretty sure my kids have given you at least 1 million views just on heavy rotation in my house. But what's interesting about it is that, so you're packaging it up, but you also created the technology to go source this stuff. So I almost liken it to the story of Scooter Braun finding Justin Bieber on YouTube. Were you actively, as a person or a team, looking for this type of content? Or did you have technology that sort of, I guess, built the algorithm to understand maybe a clip was this short or it had this type of content in it? Was that part of what Jukin Media did?
It was absolutely. Its proprietary technology was essentially, when we first started, we hired a product person, and their job was to take my brain and find ways to automate the process, because I had a great sense of what content I knew we could monetize. And then we started collecting all that data once we were monetizing these videos. And so we were able to essentially put a giant filter on the internet. And we were going after what we call like viewership velocity and see how many views, likes, shares, comments, a particular video we get in a certain hour. And if it was something that we would like, it would be added to a highly customized CRM system that we built. And there were some manual parts to that because people had to sign contracts. And we also had always verified as the right owner, which we're really great at leading the charge in rights management, digital rights management. And so it was super important to us to get this right. And so we spent a lot of money and built out a pretty big tech stack.
As every investor always says, if you could solve a problem at scale, you're gonna, and that's the secret sauce for a lot of startups to scale themselves, but also get acquired. So taking this experience that you've had, obviously, just like everybody, you love travel, right? You love events, you love travel. And so obviously you're still building stuff post-acquisition or post-exit. Where did travel start to fall in here? Looking at the current landscape of travel media, it's a lot of legacy type of brands. And so what did you identify that said, I can go and disrupt this, or I can do it slightly better?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there was like a few things. It's hard for me to say there was just like one aha moment. And I think it was me doing a lot of research on the media and content space. Media is really at a challenging time right now. And some people say, why the hell would you get into media? This is where opportunities are built, where it is challenged. And that's when I started Jukin in 2009, at the same time of a big economic downturn. So I think first off, I wanted to get in media because I'm a media content guy. There's a lot of domain expertise there. And so I also have always loved when content has really transformed industries. And there's been very few times an example or in history where there's been these examples of content really changing the trajectory of a certain industry. And one of my favorite examples is, did you ever see the movie Sideways, which is somewhat related to travel? It really changed the wine industry. You know, it had Merlot sales going down and Pinot Noir, which wasn't that famous. People usually knew as Burgundy, but when Pinot Noir, when Miles said, I'm not drinking fucking Merlot. Yeah, he's a huge Pinot Noir fan. And so Pinot sales went through the roof, and it also popularized wine in America. And so that's like a direct correlation. There's been a few others, but most recent one is Netflix's Drive to Survive, F1. You can absolutely see a correlation of popularity in F1 and when that series was out. So I love kind of seeing those examples and like, how can I do that within a particular industry? And so I was also looking at travel and seeing how many people are spending in travel. Like travel spending and popularities through the roof. People want those, they're craving those real life experiences, especially out of the pandemic. And so I was looking at travel media, and travel media, unfortunately, was heading in the opposite direction. It was like nosediving. And so I was obsessed trying to figure out, why is there such a disconnect? Why are the media industries not be able to grasp these dollars that are actually the biggest dollars is in travel? Is more people are spending on travel and experiences than ever before. And so I was obsessed with trying to figure out that disconnect. And after doing some more research, I realized two things legacy media, the guys like Frommer's, Lonely Planet, Condé Nast, Travel and Leisure, they come at it from a glossy magazine style approach. And we're living in a much different age. And me, with my background in digital media and building audience communities, I think it really needs to take a digital first mindset, a video first mindset to come to this space, because that's where the eyeballs are. I think secondly, what those guys don't have, they don't have a loyal following, and they don't have a tremendous brand equity when it comes by the consumer. And so I wanted to build a 2.0 version of Jukin. So we were very successful, those brands that I named before. But how do I apply that in travel industry and really create a sense of community, a sense of audience? And how we do that is through a 360 approach and being platform agnostic, whether it's books, physical books, and I'm sure we'll get into that, to our social following, to live events. It's really a multi-platform approach.
Yeah, so basically you're building out a community around this type of content, which what you said really resonated with me earlier about Sideways, because I'm a California kid. I grew up in California. And when people think about wine, they think of Napa. But this was not Napa that was featured in...
It's like Central California on the map, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And that actually drove that. So, that type of media changed behavior. It also stimulated travel to that region. And of course, sold a couple bottles of wine, right?
I'm a direct byproduct of that. I actually go to Central California, north of Santa Barbara, more than I do go to Napa. I'm also in LA. It's a little bit geographically closer for me, but I would never have known about it if it wasn't for the Sideways.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And along those lines, what you were saying about these travel publishers, the current ones, and another thing I'll add is I don't really see a huge social media presence from all of them. Obviously, there are some fans or people who go to them to curate certain pieces of travel. But from a content perspective, you're working with a ton of influencers as well. But what do you think is the secret sauce from a travel perspective to get people really excited about a destination, really excited about a brand that you're obviously going to capitalize on at some point?
Well, I think it starts with that audience. It starts with that community. It's building fandom. And within that fandom, it takes time to build, I think, that credibility and authority and trust with the audience. And so when we went out, I knew how difficult it would be to start a brand. And so Lost In is actually an acquisition. And they've done these physical guidebooks for a number of years, but they're very analog. But they're not your mother's guidebook or your Rick Steves guidebook. With all the respect to them, their brand, the Lost In brand, which is now our brand, goes a layer deeper. We're talking about the gastronomy. We're talking about the art scene. The Paris book doesn't talk about the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower. And obviously those are great places, but there's plenty of information on that. And we go to find that subculture and that heartbeat of a city. And so we're talking about the Parisian rapper that's up and coming. And this is actually where you have to go check them out. And so it's coming at it from a much more, I think, millennial lens. We like to say our audience is the premium economy traveler. They are working professionals. They have discretionary income, and they prioritize their income and lifestyle around travel and travel culture. And so that's really the audience we're going after. They're not the one percenters, but they're also not the bottom feeders, discount, let's do travel on a budget. They're willing to spend a little bit more for that legroom and comfort. And so it's just working professional that is articulate around travel. They know travel, and they consider travels really part of who they are.
You're obviously defining a specific demographic, a specific target. I get it. They're probably underserved at this time, and you guys are filling in the gap. And in terms of the type of content, it's really off the beaten path, to say the least? Or
Absolutely. It's not the places that you could always kind of Google or find on TripAdvisor. Sure, some of them could be there, but we also like talking about like pop-ups, but you can't necessarily find that on Google. And so we really go ask locals. And I think what's some of the proudest moments so far in my editorial career has been when I launched a book and the locals say, oh my God, I've been here for 20 years. I've never heard of this place. I've never seen this. I didn't know this happens on Wednesday nights. And that's like the ultimate compliment if you can get there. And I think people want to go beyond just the regular places. And I would say off the beaten path is we're going in the middle of the jungle, but it's off the main street and you have to go through some cobblestone alley to get to this underground pub.
Yeah, it matches with that demographic, right? You want something that's cool, shareable, something that is not necessarily commonplace that maybe your parents or your uncles or whoever had done before. You want to stand out. So that's really interesting. personally, I don't see anybody kind of playing in that space right now. So it makes complete sense you'd go after it. But here's the other thing. You're talking to an audience of people who are from the travel industry. I've been in the travel industry for over 20 years, ticketing, live events. So what have you noticed? Because you're entering from a media lens, right? And coming into the travel industry, I know you're going to certain conferences and events and such, but what's the main difference between traditional sort of brand media partnerships that you have and with travel suppliers or companies or technology providers that you would most likely speak to now?
I think at a high level, there's a lot of differences and there's a lot of similarities as well. But I would say what I've learned and what I find so fascinating, just very early in my career getting into the travel world, but I'm inundated, I'm knees deep. I've realized how super fragmented the industry is. It's a huge industry, but it's super fragmented. And I don't think I ever really understood that. And I think where the similarity is coming from being a TV producer is really about packaging. And so trying to find the package, trying to find the pieces of the puzzle and how all those pieces fit together. And so within travel, you have the OTAs, the technology, the online agencies. You have the in-kind agencies, travel agencies. You have the hospitality. You have the tour operators. You have the DMOs. You have tourism boards. So it's all they're all separate, interconnected. They don't necessarily love playing together or working together, but you have to find your path and to find your way in to package it all together. And so that's what I found extremely fascinating. And like the media industries today, a lot of it is legacy. I think travel is even more legacy, is the way from folks that have been doing this for a very long time. I think once you're in travel, you stay in travel. It's hard to get out of travel. And so you have a lot of, I think I want to be respectful because it is a great industry, but it's some archaic kind of thinking that goes behind that. Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I think I think people who think that they're being disruptive actually aren't. They're staying safe. And then with these different companies that enter the space, I had the opportunity to work in ticketing as well. So let's take a large company like a Live Nation. Total ticketing is probably about 60 billion. Versus if you look at travel, it's like 9 trillion a year annual. And you're right, it's very fragmented. I break it down more simply in a lot of ways. It's suppliers and distributors, and then the platforms in between.
Sure.
And so that when you look at it in that realm, it allows you to develop a better strategy to hit each side of that and find who the major players are. In terms of marketing in general, what we find is that a lot of brands in particular on the travel side can't compete with the big guys out there in the space. So if you look at Expedia and you look at Booking.com, they're literally the biggest clients of Google. They drive a majority of the traffic. So a lot of, whether it's a hotel group or airline or whatever, they have to partner with them. And so I think I mentioned to you when we first talked, it's like the fact that you have distribution is key. It's
totally
key to working with these suppliers, whether it be an airline or a hotel or a destination. And so has that shaped your strategy a bit of what the value proposition are to these travel suppliers?
I think we can go deep into the open web and SEO and how these guys you're right, you're absolutely paying Google and you're not going to outspend, I think, the OTAs. When I see we looked at a lot of startups to acquire, and essentially what they were just trying to build is another OTA. They might build a better looking mousetrap, but they can't keep the mice in, because in order to keep the mice in, you have to keep putting cheese out there. And you're spending a lot of money on ads. And so your customer acquisition costs through the roof. So a lot of these companies don't make it. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. A lot of startups say, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to disrupt the OTA business. But it's super hard when they have such a stronghold, the Hotels.com, the Expedias.
Yeah.
My thing is, I do think this world is changing pretty quickly. And with AI and with, I think, SEO being less and less important, that's why we want to establish a more one-on-one connection with our user and fan base and create that fan equity and brand equity. Because I think SEO is going to be obsolete or going to be less important, maybe not obsolete, but less important in the coming years. And so our strategy is totally different. We're not even going to try to compete on an SEO game. Let's not even play in that ballpark. But you know what? Let's build a different ballpark. We'll start off with a sandbox. But let's build a different sandbox over here and start developing over there and start developing those tools and start inviting those kids to come over and play with us. And the more kids come, the bigger and bigger field that we're going to build. And because it's important to have that one-on-one relationship and knowing that our audience, which is mostly younger, their eyeballs are on social. And we want to take advantage of social and leverage those platforms, those free platforms, by the way, to build an audience and community.
Attention all event goers and organizers. Say goodbye to travel headaches and hello to Crew Fair, your ultimate group travel solution for events, festivals, and sports experiences. Whether you're heading to the concert of the year, the big game, or unforgettable festivals, Crew Fair gets you there with exclusive discounts on accommodations, seamless booking options, and 24/7 live support to make your trip stress-free. And for event organizers, Crew Fair has you covered. Monetize attendee travel, streamline hotel room blocks, and gain powerful insights to make every event a success. With over 200,000 happy travelers and partnerships with more than 100 events, Crew Fair is redefining the way we travel for moments that matter. Visit crewfair.com today to book your next event travel experience or discover how Crew Fair can take your event to the next level. Crew Fair, where travel meets unforgettable experiences.
Scrolling is listening. Your brand needs standout audio for social media, and Expo Travel Media makes it happen. Ear-catching radio spots, dynamic social media voiceovers, custom sound design that pops. We craft audio that stops the scroll and keeps your audience engaged. Whether it's a quick promo, a full campaign, or a killer ad, we bring the voice, music, and production magic to make it all shine. Let's make audio content that works. Visit expotravel.com for media production inquiries today. Yeah, no, it's a huge point, because if you have to go with that sandbox analogy, the big kids in the sandbox are spending $2 to $3 billion a year to drive that traffic, right? So that's definitely disruptive in terms of finding new distribution.
And there's no reason to even try to compete with them, you know?
Right. It's like moving mountains. Yeah, because to your earlier point, as a consultant, I talk to lots of startup founders and encounter them. And a lot of them can be very precious about the product, John. They want to make sure that it converts in this way, or the buttons look this way, whatever it might be. But it always comes down to, all right, that's great. You're going to get all this investment and it's going to be a perfect product, but you still need to market it. How are you going to drive traffic to it to get all the conversions that you're looking for? And so that's where deer in headlights, it's a realization. But it's true. And so there might be opportunities for others to, as you said, drive traffic through content. One of the things I was curious about too is like using your old sort of methods. Is there something in particular that you've seen can go viral very quickly on the travel content side? Is it the way it's edited, or is it a certain type of content, or maybe it's just the event itself? It's piggybacking off of other marketing stuff.
At one point, I was called the king of viral videos, and I really lived in that world for a very long time. And I also think it was a much different world where actually viral videos existed. I think they don't exist as much today, where you had a viral video, it became that zeitgeist moment. It became that pop culture kind of an icon. We talked about the Pizza Rat. Yeah, we're still talking about it today, but I don't think there's any videos that are coming out today we're going to be talking about 5-6 years down the road, because it's a commodity reality.
Yeah, that's a huge call out. Actually, I can't think of the last
real
viral video, because people just spend.
Yeah,
I've seen whether it's a music artist or a show, they're putting equal amounts of their marketing dollars into these channels to get these views, rather than just organic, authentic virality, where someone shares it and another person shares it and it goes crazy. But to your point, I haven't really seen anything lately.
Jukin was a great company at a great time and a great moment in time in internet culture and history. And you don't see that type of reality. It's how the company's now evolved as it should. But I think when I look at it differently is that I don't want to be shoving clickbaity headlines or thumbnails. The Lost In brand is more about discovery. And so I'm also like pushing back. So everything that I did before, I'm almost pushing back a little bit and focusing more on the quality of the content, working with influencers that not the ones with the biggest names. And you mentioned them earlier, and I want to touch on that. It's the ones that really meet our brand ethos and are talking through our lens, who have similar like-minded, because that's what a community is. It is this like-minded individuals that share the same values. And so those are the kind of the folks and people we want to partner with. It's less about let's get the most viral video in the world, because I actually think there's a huge problem with influencers in travel. I think it's a freaking mess out there.
Yeah, I was going to
fragmented. It's super fragmented there.
No, I was going to go there. It's a big topic of conversation because if you have 10,000 followers, you got up to 1 million. They feel like they have license to go and call a hotel and get a comp, or go to a bigger brand and get a comp. And then you're displaying their lifestyle, which again, to our earlier part of our conversation, could be purchased, right? That the followers that could be around them. And so there's actual companies now who authenticate the followers for certain influencers so that a hotel or a destination or whoever it might be can at least feel a little bit more peace of mind in terms of what type of ROI that they're going to get if they do offer a comp room or whatever it might be. And yeah, what's sort of your way of looking at qualifying? You said it earlier, actually, like you want like-minded individuals, authenticity, but I think maybe there's an opportunity here for you to provide a little bit of advice to travel industry people to say, here's what you should look for, and here are the best type of influencers to work with.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I could be helpful on the advice. I can tell you exactly what's important, what I like and don't like. I think actually
Perfect.
travel creators are some of the most annoying people on the planet. To be honest with you, that's my pure honesty. I think there's nothing authentic about it, a lot of it. And you're right, they just want to barter. And by the way, these guys' staying power isn't that long. It's just a few years. These guys get burnt out. It's hard to travel, to be on the road. I'm about to head to Europe. I'm about to do a multi-city. I'm preparing myself mentally and physically for it.
It's a lot.
Before I go, these travel creators, they don't stick around that long. So it's hard to build that loyal following. They give up quickly. It's hard to maintain their lifestyle. And you're right. A lot of the time it's inauthentic and it's not organic. And so they're just going out there to promote a hotel or because they're staying there for free. And by the way, they may not necessarily like it, and they'll just do it. They're just they're making calls every day, just trying to get free airline tickets, free stays. And you can't really, it's hard to build that one-on-one connection with somebody when you know that this is all fake and phony. And we're really trying to find a couple, meaning like a husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, a travel couple who travels together. I'd love to find that. The problem, all I see are these guys happy and smiling and saying how great of a trip they are. Trust me, I travel and I love my wife to death. Or we're arguing about getting lost, losing the room key. Certain times you have to be somewhere. I want to see that. To me, that is actually the realness and you talk about authenticity. That's what I really find. So if you find a travel creator, a couple out there, let me know. There's definitely good times. There's also some bad times, but that's real drama that people care about because people do get lost on vacation. They miss things and they lose things and the airlines lose things. And I'm trying to find that authenticity at the end of the day. And so I think travel creators and influencers are really bad for the industry at the end of the day. And I know the hospitality folks, it's a gift and a curse for them. It's almost necessarily evil to deal with. But I think if everything being equal, they would choose not to deal with them.
At least not to field the phone call because they get a lot of them. That's the whole thing.
Totally. And I'm not saying they're all like this, but 90% of them are like this.
Yeah. If you need a family to follow, my wife and I, we argue all the time, especially about what we're going to do. And then when you put a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old into the mix, you're right. There's a lot of smiling faces, a lot of like cute stuff out there, but it's a matter of the reality of travel is tough. Like getting from one flight to another, getting the right car to take you someplace. Language barriers, John.
Totally.
My son and I are in Duolingo right now. We're on a 50-day streak. You know what I mean? Because
cultural barriers too, and etiquette is super important. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get the cameras rolling. Let's go.
You know what? On the next one, I'll let you know. We got a couple of shots for you. No, that's amazing, man. You've got a set of books that you're already in. So what are your highlighted destinations currently and where you're going next? Where are you headed next with Lost In?
Yeah, great question. So we've done 28 different cities at this point, and Lost in Paris, Lost in London. This year, we did some new editions of our Tokyo book, our Amsterdam and Stockholm. And so we have a few more new editions out. I think I can say we're going to do Milan, and we're partnering with Milan there and their local tourism board. So we're super excited about that. It'll come later this year. Also tied into the Olympics that they have in 26. And I think for us is they've done some of the, like London kind of being a big city itself. Los Angeles has been done. New York has been done. But now we're trying to go and coming out with a new collection. And we're focusing on some of the neighborhoods because I think within a big city, each neighborhood has its own uniqueness and has its own kind of people. And so we did our first kind of neighborhood edition late last year, which was Venice Beach. We're also headquartered in Venice Beach. It was our first book under our banner. So it's a great way to test in our own sandbox, if we want to keep using that analogy. And that was super successful. It was hugely successful. And it was awesome to see the community rally behind it, working with the Chamber of Commerce, working with the local tourism board. It's really awesome to see it come together. And so we're going to do that on the East Coast with a major city. We're focusing on a neighborhood that I can't quite announce yet, but we do a few of these neighborhoods, and then you have a collection of the whole city. And each neighborhood is unique, has its own style, and we want to go deep, a little bit more deeper, and a little bit more localized is really our goal.
Yeah, this speaks to the demographic again. I take anybody who's millennial, Gen Z, they're really missing, because it's so digital everywhere, they're really missing something to hold. I like this to music, right? Buying vinyl is off the charts, and that authentic sort of analog feeling is missing, the authenticity of the experience. And so when 100%. When you're going to Venice, which I saw some of your stuff, and I stayed at the Hotel Irwin a couple times, and so to see how you guys shot it and pulled that all together, I think it's a really cool advantage, one, for the hotel to keep that book inside of the property, right? In every room or in the lobbies. Yep. But for the destination itself, to have this bridge from digital to real life. And so what are like top line value prop points you would say to any destination at this point to look at Lost In as a partner, or just to liken back to that authentic experience within their market or destination?
I think what's really amazing, is I talked about that credibility. We'll never undercut something because someone's throwing some money at us. We actually turned down a lot of partnerships with some hospitality groups because it just doesn't make sense, and we would never cover it. And so right now, we mentioned different cities and different destinations. It's really cool to see people come pitch us and say, hey, do our city now. We'll help support this. We'll help do this. And I think that's awesome and that's flattering. But at the same time, we'll never do it if it doesn't make sense for our audience and it's not authentic to our community. That's a top tier for us when we're thinking about the destination. Would we do this on our own? And if we can get help along the way, absolutely. And it's awesome to see people come to pitch us. And I do think for a majority, though, we can find our own unique lens. It may not be exactly what kind of the destination wants, but like, you're coming to us because we're Lost In. We have this great audience that's super passionate about travel. And we have this very unique and particular lens. And we avoid the tourist traps. We just don't show them. There's plenty of information where you get tourist traps or some landmarks. We like to show the locals. And like I said, if we can editorialize a place and socialize a place that the locals are proud of, that's like kind of the ultimate.
Yeah, that's the secret sauce right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what you would consider on brand for Lost In, as well as creating an authentic experience for that destination to market.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can get their level of approval on a local level, that's the ultimate credibility.
So are you looking at collecting this content and doing something maybe even bigger, like creating television shows or other things that would drive, I guess, destination marketing? Because I do think that needs to be disrupted a bit as well. Is this kind of in the long-term vision? I understand if you're like, I can't really say right now, but it sounds like with your background, Jon, you could do a number of things. I'm sure there's a much bigger vision.
Absolutely. Of course. We see this as a multimedia company. And with that is short form. We have to be that platform agnostic, and which that is short form, which that is books, which that events, which that is long form. And we want to reach our audience where those eyeballs are. And I think the content might be slightly different because a 30-second video on Instagram is going to be different than a long-form series. But the long-form series is still going to have the DNA from Lost In. And we're still going to have that through line. We're still going to have that lens. And absolutely. In fact, after this podcast, I'm jumping on a call talking about an episodic series. I think we do really well with this partner we're talking to.
Awesome. One of the last things I wanted to mention too is just what Tickets to Travel is all about is really focused on the travel demand that's created through live events. So whether that's sports or music festival or concert series or a tour, I know you guys deal in live events as well. Are there partnerships not just on the travel side, but also on the live event side that you'd look to do? Or are you mainly looking at this as creating your own live events to drum up eyeballs for the brand?
All the above. How we look at like kind of events and meetups is like we like to eventize when we drop a new book. And so for like Venice Beach, we did some great pop-up dinners, leveraging the places that we covered, which is amazing, where we did a big open to the public party where 400 people show up, and that place was in the book. And we want to support our partners there. And so an event could be around a book drop. It could be around a meetup that we're doing in a particular city. We're just starting to talk to have city ambassadors to help us throw these meetups, the Lost In meetup, and build that community. We're also doing events around partnerships that we have. And so we've been very successful partnering with some CPG brands. And you're like, that's not necessarily travel. They have similar brand alignment as far as the values in that lens. They also have a lot of brand alignment around kind of audience and who the target audience and market they're going after. And so we're in Venice Beach. We did an event with a fragrance company, this hot D2C CPG company that did live activations at Coachella, which again is part of our audience too, younger music lovers. And we did this big event over here on Venice Beach off Abercrombie. And so we created content, we promoted together. I'm finding these up-and-coming partners and up-and-coming D2C CPG companies where our brands, where there's a lot of synergy and overlap. And so we're doing events and programming with them.
And so it's just to specify for anybody who wants to follow your progress and evolution, Lost In is the main brand. But what are the other ones that we should look out for that are related to Lost In?
Yeah, so we're really pushing out Lost In, but it's my kind of growth hacking and digital chops. A little bit comes from seeding and other distribution. And so we have a few other brands that we're able to cross-pollinate audience and send people to Lost In and vice versa. And so there's one called View From My Window, which is a Facebook group of about 4 million fans. It's hugely, highly engaged, hugely passionate audience that love taking photos from anywhere in the world. That's a view from my window. And so that's really awesome and amazing. We have another one on Instagram called Travelgram, which is more kind of general travel. But again, younger, slicker content that we're able to cross-pollinate with the Lost In brand.
Awesome. Jon, thank you for your time today. We are going to continue to keep an eye on Lost In and the related brands and really watch you grow. I do believe you guys are disrupting in your own way in terms of creating this type of content, viral content in some cases. But I really appreciate you sharing your story and some of your vision for Lost In Travel. Thanks.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And if there's one thing to take away from this conversation with Jon Skogmo, it's this. Legacy travel media is broken, and the next era of destination storytelling belongs to those who can build community, not just content. As travel professionals, event marketers, and tourism boards look to drive real demand, the model Jon's building at Lost In offers a blueprint. It's not just about digital reach, it's about authenticity, curation, and creating something that people actually want to hold in their hands, share with their friends, and trust when planning a trip. Jon's approach reminds us that influence isn't about follower count. It's about values alignment. It's about the difference between shouting into the void versus telling a story your audience wants to be a part of. He's betting on city-specific content, real subcultures, and the kind of storytelling that gets locals saying, I didn't even know that place existed. For destinations and event producers, the lesson is clear. If you have to move beyond the top 10 lists and into real emotional connections with travelers, you need media partners who live and breathe that city-level nuance and who understand how to package it across platforms, from social to print to live events. If you want to follow Jon's journey and get inspired by what's next, follow the team at lostin.travel on Instagram, at Travelgram for slick social first travel content, and the global community of 4+ million fans at View From My Window on Facebook. And of course, follow us on Tix2 Travel Pod on all the social platforms for more interviews at the intersection of live events, tourism, and fan-powered travel. Always come to tttpod.com. Thanks for listening, because every ticket is a ticket to travel. Stay curious out there.
Attention travel and ticketing innovators. Whether you're a startup disrupting the industry or an established company ready to take your distribution strategy to the next level, Expo Travel is your ultimate partner in online travel and ticketing distribution. We specialize in helping businesses of all sizes optimize their operations, expand their reach, and unlock new revenue streams. And for startups looking to grow, we partnered with top venture capital syndicates to help you secure the funding you need to turn bold ideas into thriving businesses. From refining businesses to scaling operations and raising capital, Expo Travel is here to drive your success. Visit Expo Travel today. That's xpotravel.com for a consultation. And let's transform the way the world travels, one innovation at a time. Expo Travel, because the future of travel and ticketing starts with you.